Yeah, thank you, Ibrahim, for the introduction. From my side as well, welcome for this 60 minutes of BPM talk. I'm happy to see this full house here, and especially at this late evening. So you raised the bar. A few words about myself. I don't know what Ibrahim already told you because my Arabic is not so good. Let's say it that way. Yeah, my name is Dirk Stehler. I'm Director of Strategy and Operations at a German BPM software company. The company is called GBTech, as you see in the logo here. I'm working in the BPM area for almost 20 years now. And before that, I used to work as a mechanical engineer in a large corporation in Germany. And somehow I got stuck in the BPM field way back in the 90s. And I'm still there, still doing BPM. Beside from my job at GBTech, I work as assistant professor at two universities in Germany. And of course in BPM, where else can you work? And I would like to share a few project experiences that we made in Germany with you today. And as well, at the end of the presentation, I will share with you an approach that we use in Germany to set up BPM solutions for large corporations, but even for small and medium corporations. It is not linked to large corporations only. So this approach can be used even in your own company, or if you are more in the consulting area active, it can be used as a consulting solution. And I would like to share a little bit of this material with you so you can use it afterwards and you have an additional benefit, not only the presentation, hopefully you can use parts of the material afterwards as well. But before we come to this, let's go into, why is that guy not working? There it is. Let's speak a little bit about the agenda for tonight. So first, the question, I think everybody else asks this from time to time, why are we talking about technology so often? That's a topic we're going to scratch a little bit because I just had a few discussions with Dr. Yusuf from the university that technology is often thought as being a solution, but the solution must be a little bit more than just technology. Then we will speak about a call center ID that we had in Germany, how to solve call center solutions. And for those of you, I'm sure most of you have a business idea, but for those of you among us who do not have a business idea, I'm going to share a business idea with you tonight that is completely brand new in Germany, and I'm sure it hasn't been done in Saudi Arabia. So if you're looking for a good startup idea, I'm going to share this with you as well. A document solution, pretty old style document solution, everybody of you know and everybody of you already have used. We will scratch this as well. And then we will have a slightly deeper look into a logistic project with DHL. You know these guys, German company. And this is one of my favorites because you're not so often capable to speak about projects that fail at the beginning because nobody wants to speak about failed projects. This is always something, nobody wants to do that or likes to do that. I once tried to set up a workshop with the title, How I Screwed It Up, and nobody wanted to attend. So yeah, it would be very interesting if we could have done this, but it didn't work out. So we will talk about this, and then based on these examples, I will show you our approach, how we set up BPM solutions in Germany, more or less the basic fundamental in describing BPM. But BPM is more than just modeling, this is just the starting point. And last but not least, I will share a few ideas with you how to integrate BPM with enterprise architecture management and as well with SOA, which means as a placeholder for automating processes. BPM itself is not enough, you need always a little bit more. But let's first speak about this, why do we talk about technology so often? And there is a phrase I have here on the presentation deck that, in my opinion, really describes the issue currently. So when you look into the current situation out there, we often see the difference between digitization and digitalization. So many people just do digitization. They have old processes, old ways of doing business, and they just transfer stuff from an analog medium into a digital medium. But this is not really making progress. It's like doing the old stuff just quicker, and if it's worse, doing the bad stuff just quicker. In the opposite, the digitalization, this is what really counts and what really is interesting is how can we create completely new business models? How can we come up with completely new solutions and use technology to provide completely new ideas and to create something that really shakes up the market? And this is what we should try to achieve. We should try to move into a digital business by setting up really new ideas and create new products that haven't been there yet. I know that most of you are somehow in the startup area, and if you are working in that, you 100% know that, otherwise you won't be active in the startup segment. But even the traditional old businesses, they have opportunities for completely new ideas. And as said, I'm going to share one of these new ideas with you that just popped up in Germany. I think they have no international patent on it, so if you want to do it, do it. It's a pretty cool idea. Just give me a few minutes and we're going to talk about that one. My first example tonight about business process management and how can business process management really be used to shake up an industry. You can imagine what I'm talking about, call centers. We all know call centers, we all speak with people in call centers. Whenever we are calling our phone company, an airline, whatever, we end up in a call center somewhere on the planet. And I have some figures for you. Unfortunately, these are the latest validated numbers. That's why it's 2007. It's not 2017 because of that. I know they're a little bit old, but these are the latest available validated numbers for call center minutes in a month globally, on a global scale. In 2003, we had 26 billion minutes each month. In 2007, it has already been grown up to 35 billion. And thinking about the continuous growth of call centers, you can somehow follow a trend there that today it is estimated that we are around about, it's not completely linear, but it will be around about in between 40 and 45 billion minutes each month, call center minutes. So this is quite a decent number. Now, let's put some hard figures beside that, looking at the cost for these call center minutes. And if we take a look at this standard telephone call in a call center, usually costs $9.50. This is total cost of ownership in a call center, which means not only the person who's answering the phone, it means equipment, it means building, depreciation, tax, all that you have. $9.50 for each call. So let's think about how can we change this business? How can we make this business even cheaper? So, and there is a way to do this, live via email, which means you are not talking to a person anymore, you're sending an email and you get it back in real life almost instantly. But the interesting thing is, they found out that by doing this, the costs almost do not drop. Because you need the building, you need almost the same infrastructure, you need the same people. It's just slightly cheaper because you get rid of the telephone lines. You can do it over IP, but even with voice over IP, it didn't change that much. Second way of changing the business is live via text chat. And that means there is someone sitting there and doing it multiple, with many customers in parallel. I have this with my cell phone contract, for example. When I call my cell phone company, they charge me. If I do a live chat with these guys on the internet, it's for free. So that's exactly what's reflected in this price difference, $9 versus $5. But it's still not that huge, okay, it's almost 50%, but can we do more? We can. There is another option, which is email with macro support, which means somebody is still writing emails, but he does not have to be that specific for your individual answer. The system is supporting him by macros that are automatically looking for possible answers, knowledge-based systems in the background that propose possible solutions and place them right into the email. It's a little bit like semi-automatic. This reduces the costs even further, down to $2.50. But it can be even better. Interactive voice systems, $1.10. You know all these things where you press 1, press 2, press 4, and they have become pretty intelligent. I just had a conversation with someone in the United States who 100%ly swore to me he has talking to a call center system that pretend to be a human, and he didn't even recognize it. It was a machine. I don't know if it's true, but he was 100% convinced, I have spoken to a robot, I'm 100% sure, but it was like a human. So we are down to $1.10 here. Completely different thing of doing call center business, and could be even better. Fully automatically via email. This is compared with the other options, the less expensive way of answering call center requests. Fully automatic by email. And if you do this, compared with this, it's obvious that you have a completely different business process. If you want to design something like this, you have to fully understand your overall call center business process. And to fully understand it, you first have to document it. You have to describe it somehow and derive solutions out of this. And looking at the numbers, we are talking about less than 3% of the costs. And this is dramatic. And now, based on this, using automatic systems, based on new processes for a call center, I'm going to share this business idea with you. This, as I said, it's pretty new. How often have you been stuck in a call center waiting line? Pretty often, I think. You're just hanging there, listening to music, and you will be the next available client is reserved for you. Yeah. Doesn't give you any number how long that might take. If they're good, they might say probably your waiting time is around about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or I just called Lufthansa a couple of weeks ago when they went on strike, and I think the waiting time was an hour 50. So I'm not going to wait an hour 50. And here's the idea. The idea is have a machine waiting for you. Can you imagine that? You call a call center, and the second it is busy, you get the option, hey, shall we wait for you? If you want us to wait for you, press 1. You press 1, and the second you press 1, you get an SMS. We'll send you a second SMS with a URL that you just have to click on as soon as your call can be directly transferred to an agent. And then you can proceed with whatever you're doing. You don't have to wait, you don't have to listen to music. Whenever they are ready to talk to you, you get an SMS, old technology, 20 years old. You just press the link in the short message, and you're directly connected with an agent in the call center. And this technology that you need for this is pretty simple. So the guys who implemented this solution in Germany, they used very, very little technology to do this. And as a medium, they just use an old SMS. This is a game changer. This is completely a change in how call centers can solve specific problems of customers. So whenever you would like to, or looking for a new business idea, I think this is something that's going to run in Saudi Arabia as well. I could not do it in Germany because they are already there, but probably in Saudi Arabia. Second example, how business can be changed. And the funny thing with this example is you all know it. And you probably haven't even recognized that you already know it. You know this thing here? every one of you knows these things, and probably you have just used one within the last weeks. This is the one I just used last week to come down here to Riyadh. And can you still remember the time when we had these old printed paper tickets? I can remember this. I think in Germany they stopped using it in the middle of the 90s or so, but where they took them out, stamped them, and these old paper tickets. Just have a look at the numbers again. In 2015, in Germany, we had approximately a 4% increase of passengers on German airports only, so around about 260 million passengers in the major airports in Germany. And almost 100% of these passengers, they traveled by e-tickets, by this electronic ticket. There is no printout ticket anymore. There's even no printed out ticket globally anymore. There are just a few small airlines in the middle of the South Pacific that have printed tickets anymore, but the rest is almost using e-tickets. And when you just compare the price of an old paper ticket with the new e-tickets, it's $10 versus $1. But, and here's the catch, this changed an industry. We all think this is just a different way of printing out my ticket. That's right, it's a different way, but this is a way of changing an industry. Because think of all these companies who created these paper tickets. They were printed on special equipment because they were as good as money. They were really valuable documents. Even if nothing was printed on them, they had to secure the paper. Sometimes the paper got stolen because it was used for fraud with selling tickets that never existed. And this industry completely vanished. It's gone. Inclusive with the builders of the machines for printing these tickets, the logistics that was behind delivering this paper material, not only to the airlines, as well to the travel agencies that had to have this on stock. This is all completely got destroyed just by an idea of e-tickets. And this is an old, destructive idea. I always have to smile a little bit when I read current business news and we are looking for the new disruption and for the new solution. Disruption has been there all the time. It's nothing that's new. Let's go back to the 30s when the German Schumpeter, or Austrian Schumpeter to be more precise, we tried to collect him, but he's Austrian, he's not German, wrote his destruction paper, like creative destruction, the way of innovating, and it was in the 1930s. So this is nothing new. And this is an idea that really changed the industry, but you have to create a new, completely different run process in the background. So it has to be completely redesigned. Therefore, you have to understand it first as prerequisite, otherwise it isn't possible. So now, let me give you an example about DHL. And this is, in my opinion, very interesting because it shows both. It shows failure, and it shows success, and it shows the problem that comes with success in BPM. Do you know these machines? I'm not sure if you have them in Saudi Arabia. We call them packing stations. You have them as well. So you can have your package delivered to this machine and you pick it up whenever you want to. And they are distributed around Germany. Nowadays, they are almost everywhere. The DHL came up with this idea at the end of the 90s. Then they started designing this and setting up the stations. And I was very interested in learning about this concept. We did a few projects at the Deutsche Post, which is DHL. Deutsche Post bought DHL a couple of years ago, I was not involved in this project. And I'd like to find out a little bit about the figures behind it, about the numbers, because as Ibrahim, I like to always have an idea of the profit as well. Not only the processes are important, the profit is important as well. And I couldn't really find it out. The only thing I found was I found a press release from 2009. That's when they started promoting them on a large scale, which said, oh, well, we saved 280,000 transport kilometers per year with these new packing stations. And at this day, they had round about 2,000 of these stations active all across Germany. So I said, hey, pretty impressive. They have a press release about it on the website. You still can find it on their website. But no numbers, nothing, how much they saved in real euro. So I tried to make my own calculation. And in Germany, we have a system for tax deduction when you use transporting cars and transporting buses for packages, for example, which is a tax deduction around about 30 euro cents per kilometer. So for those of you who do the math, 280,000, 30 kilometers, so we're talking about 84,000 euros. Give me a break. 84,000 euros a year for a corporation large as DHL is nothing. Nothing. So I tried to find out how much they have invested for these packing stations. And as said, I'm from my education, I'm an engineer. I took a little time and I walked around one of these packing stations a couple of times and kicked against it here and there just to find out how stable it is. No, I'm just kidding. And I made a brief calculation. So I estimated the pure manufacturing costs of one of these packing units is around about 30,000 euros. Just pure manufacturing. This is not TCO. It's just building it and put it there, not operating it. And then we have this number, 2,000 of these stations across Germany. Once again, for those who did the math, we're talking about 60 million euros, which means 84,000 euros in savings, 60 millions in, it's slightly out of balance. So my assumption 2009 was this project was a failure. And it was interesting. I did pretty similar speech in 2009 where I had this example. And of course not with the extended story. And after the speech, somebody out of the audience approached me and said, yeah, you're right. I was at the project and your estimation regarding the costs of producing one of the units, 30,000 euro, they are more or less correct. And from our point of view, as said, it was way back in 2009. He said, from our point of view, it wasn't that successful, you're absolutely right, but you missed the point. And I've asked him, of course, yeah, what kind of point did I miss? And he said, the real problem was we didn't understood the customer. And he told me the story. He said, I'm not going to mention his name because we are on YouTube tonight, so probably this guy is in trouble. I don't want him to be in trouble. He said, yeah, you know, in Germany, most of the people live in rented apartments, in huge apartment buildings, which average 6 parties in one building. So if you set up something like this, and you have a lorry delivering packages to these buildings, and only one person still have his stuff delivered to his home, you have to go twice. You have to go to this device and you have to go to the home anyway. Even one package or 6, doesn't matter, you have to go there. And this we did not understand. And the German customers weren't willing, at least not on a large scale, to have their stuff delivered to these boxes. Back in 2009. That's when they said, yeah, we are not so happy with the financial results. But the situation changed a little bit today. Today, most of the Germans expect it and go to these devices. So back in 2009, the assumption was, not only mine, from DHL as well, the packaging stations are not successful and won't be for a long time. In 2017, the assumption is they are slowly gaining a momentum and becoming beneficial. And what we did there is profitable, but we have a very long return on investment time. And the catch here is, are we willing to accept these long ROI? Because when we are moving into a digitalized business, changing the business process completely, coming up with new solutions that haven't been there so far, it's not the general technology that we have to change. We all are from the technology base, so we all engineers or from the information technology side. So we can handle technology and we can even solve tough problems, but we cannot change the behavior of our customers, at least not that quickly. So that means whenever you start a digitalized business and start something that really changes your way of working, or you create a product that creates something that is unique and hasn't been there yet, and even creates hesitation on your customer side, yeah, are we willing to wait the time that it needs to become profitable? Willing and capable. So capable on from financial perspective. Can we stand it? And this is a very important question that we have to keep in mind when we come back to this question here. Digitalization versus digitization. When we really change the business, do we have the long-lasting capabilities to go to these deep problematic times that lie ahead of us before we really can gain profit out of it? In many cases. Sometimes there are situations where it can be even quicker, but just look at the huge examples. Look at Uber. Uber is not making any profit at all. They're making huge revenue, but they're making no profit. Look at Airbnb. It has taken them many, many years till they made profit. So this is something we have to keep in mind. They all started as small entrepreneurs as well. And this is a very interesting thing that we have to think about it. And can we do something to make this even less extended this time? Can we shorten it? Can we build something that helps us getting through this a little quicker? And I deeply believe that knowing your processes, knowing really how your business works, that this is a very important key aspect here. The better you know the business, the better you're capable to you can solve them. That means there will be no success without fully understanding your digitalization environment. And it's not only the processes, it's even a little bit more. You have to know your organization, you have to know your IT infrastructure, you have to know your customers, you have to know your risks, you have to know your controls that you need, etc. And therefore, you should define and describe them. And what I would like to share with you now is a little bit of a blueprint how you can do this. And the slides will be provided for you afterwards, of course, that you can even look it up in a more detailed form and not only on the small screen here. So important domains that we have to keep in mind. Of course, we need to know our IT strategy. Talking about digitalization, talking about new business models that are based on new technology, they all have something to do with digital solutions, even if they are not in the digital business, but somehow everything what we do is linked with digital capabilities. But therefore, we have to know our IT strategy. As well, we have to understand our IT architecture, how this whole ecosystem plays together, and how the different components in there are linked. And on the opposite side, we have to understand the organization structure around it. Not only your internal organization, the whole organization that is dealing with your processes, your external stakeholders as well, like customers or suppliers. And this all, that's where processes come into play, can be linked together with business processes, technical processes, and rules. And I like to split this up into business process and technical processes, because we had this discussion up front about BPM, how BPM is defined really, and you find different definitions depending where you go. So when you are when you're asking someone in the United States about business process management, they pretty quick come up with, yeah, we need automation. Business process management is more or less automating things. When you ask somebody in Europe, especially in continental Europe, in France, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and so on, business process management means more understanding the organizational aspect of it. First, understanding how your processes really work from a business perspective, from a customer perspective, from a supplier perspective, or even from your internal employee perspective. And once you understood that, then in a second step you can think about automation and take the things out of it, automate the stuff that's helpful, and probably leave other processes not automated because they're running quite well without automation. Not everything must be automated. And therefore, there is a framework available that helps us to create this overall picture. It basically consists out of 4 building blocks. 2 of these 4 building blocks I have here on this slide. The other 2 are on the following slide, of course. The first one is the enterprise architecture. And I like to look at enterprise architecture on a slightly broader picture as it is often done in the books out there. Because often enterprise architecture is reduced only to IT, and it's much, much more. Who of you have ever heard about Segment? John Segment, here. John Segment, Talal as well. John Segment was a former employee, an IBM employee, and he invented a framework for describing enterprise architecture. And his idea was he wanted to create a framework for describing the whole company, not only IT. So when you look at the Segment framework, which is pretty old, it's from the 80s, I think, you have information objects, you have automated processes, but you have as well the goals of the company, the organizational structure, risk structure, time structures, and so on. And I like to look at enterprise architecture from this perspective, describing the broader perspective, the broader scale of your business. So this covers the management perspective of IT as well. Yeah, it helps to decide on general strategic issues, because when you describe your enterprise from this global perspective, it gives you a much better understanding what's going on, and it is absolutely required when you want to do reorganizational projects on the IT area afterwards. Second, another building block is a business process specification, which means describing an IT-neutral view of the business. And here, I really would like to move away from the IT. So really describe the business as you think it should be run from a process perspective, from a business process perspective, not from an automation perspective. This is absolutely required to use all this material for internal optimization, for creating handouts for future employees, or even for external parties. This is something that is currently extremely heavily done in German financial institutions, because, you know, after the financial crisis, the government put a lot of pressure on the banks to define their processes from a pure regulation perspective. It has nothing to do with technology. They just have to define your procedures. That's something like 2008 could never happen again. And this is where exactly this takes place. 2 other building blocks are the logical IT specification that is derived out of this enterprise architecture description and business process description. And this is moving a little step closer to IT, which means now we create the glue in between that allows us to link technology with the business idea that we have. This helps us to describe the business processes and how they are supported by IT, the IT systems in general, software that we need, and so on. And last but not least, that's the last step of the 4 building blocks, is describing the IT automation perspective, like the specification for really implementing IT solutions. That is the pure automation in the end. But this is really the last building block. And when you look at the picture, how they play together, you can really follow this step by step. Start here, do this, and then do this. And not start here and try to move your way up. That's going to fail. So starting here with the building block enterprise, this delivers high-level content for all the other three, which means high-level content regarding process and organizational information for the process modeling. High-level content for designing your IT architecture, and high-level content for the detailed implementation of the IT architecture. The other building block, business process specification, as well delivers required information about the required IT systems for executing the business processes, and is a starting point for the IT specification. And the IT specification itself, of course, that's a fundament for really building something. Like these are the specifications that in the end can be handed over to a software developer for creating a solution for you. This sounds pretty theoretical. Let's make it a little bit more practical. What is behind these building blocks? The first one is application architecture. You should describe your application architecture in a distinct way so that you have all the applications that you need, the modules, the respective GUIs if you want to go that far, interfaces. I'm not talking about the GUIs here, I'm especially about the interfaces that the services provide and how you connect them. We have an infrastructure block that describes all the hardware, infrastructure, software, network structures, routers, and so on. We can discuss if a database is an application or an infrastructure. Depends on who you ask. So I'm sure there are DBAs among us, they will definitely have a different view on it than probably a user. In the end, it doesn't matter. Just put it somewhere and make it distinct. Then we have the process architecture that describes all the process domains on a high level, in which fields are we active, the process landscape, how is the basic process structure arranged, and then derived from this the detailed business processes down to the automated and execution processes. We have a data architecture block, which describes the business objects on a high level. Business object is generic, can be almost everything, from an IT object that you might end up with later, but it can be as well something physical. Even in a logistic business, a forklift is a business object because you need it to operate your business processes. But when you go deeper, derive IT objects from it, then it becomes more specific for the IT. So a forklift will never be an IT object, but probably the object that is transported by the forklift will at some point in time become an IT object because it is represented within your ERP system, for example. And from this, we can even go further, create the payload for automation services when we really want to put all this stuff in automated solutions. And then we have the organizational architecture block, which means describing organizational structure from a top-level hierarchy, the positions, persons. You see this in brackets. This is in brackets because in Germany it's not legal to describe the persons. So by law we are not allowed to write names to processes because we have strong unions that don't want people to be measurable. That's why it's not allowed. Internationally we can do it. In Germany it's problematic. Roles and geographical information. And last but not least, the service-oriented architecture block, which means describing your business services that you need, the technical services derived from this. Those of you who have ever implemented a SOA solution know the difference, and the respective service operations and service capabilities that are integrated within them. So, and this is a clearly distinct description of the objects that you need when you set up a BPM solution, and when you want to describe a BPM solution. That's not only BPM. So don't think if you do this, you do BPM. This is just the description part of it. But important thing is the description part because it's a fundament for almost everything. And this fundament should be created as distinct and as stable as possible. and therefore you have to tear the objects apart so that you can put them together afterwards in a clearly structured way. It's like building something out of Lego blocks. And first you have to create the Lego blocks before you build something. And this is a little bit like a recipe to create your Lego blocks. And when you want to implement this in a tool, I have something for you as well, which is the respective ER model to exactly implement something like this. So if you want to build a tool that represents this, you can do it like that, or you can even use this information together with the relationships in between. Here I don't want to work through all of these different relationships right now, but this is more or less, every red block here is one of the objects we just had on the slide before. And every relationship you see here is what you have to describe when you start setting up your description for a BPM solution. You don't have to do anything. Just pick the blocks that are relevant for you and connect them wherever you need to connect them. For example, for all of those of you who are familiar with the IT world, I think most of you are, we have an application system, and an application system requires some kind of hardware component to be run on. It could be a server, it could be a storage device, hardware component could be almost everything, but it can be encompassed, which means it can be built on top of other hardware components. Think about virtualization. Then you have a virtual server that's running on another hardware server. It requires an operating system. It requires probably databases, network structures, and so on. And by following this approach, you are capable to design design and describe your complete environment to set up a BPM solution combined with enterprise architecture and so on. It's not only BPM, it's even more than that. And I would like to share this with you. You can take this with you and put it beside your active work whenever you would like to describe such a solution. This at least is a little bit like a guiding map that shows you, okay, I need these objects, and how are they interlinked, and what should I do with it? And this is a good starting point for setting up such a solution on the description base, not on the implementation. There's a lot of stuff that's coming afterwards. There's many, many, many things more to do afterwards, but this is a starting point. Yes, I would like to close with this final slide, and as promised, you will be provided with these slides afterwards, so feel happy to use it wherever it's helpful for your projects. And I hope you enjoyed the almost 60 minutes of presentation, and I will be around for a couple of minutes, so whenever you have questions, feel free to ask, and thank you for attention.